So,
Before we go on, give me 5 minutes.
it's already starting. It's about 2. It's
Okay.
already, so it's 3, 2, and
We on.
we are on now. Yeah. Okay. Good evening. Welcome to the 1873 FM and TV. Today we are focusing on addressing the role of the non-governmental organizations in delivering the promise. I'm joined by Miss Natasha Pillay. Good evening.
Good evening. How are you today?
Pretty good. How is it? Are you in Pretoria?
Yes, in Pretoria at the moment.
Okay. So where do you hail from? Where do you call home?
Pietermaritzburg. So I was born and raised in Pietermaritzburg, the province of KwaZulu-Natal by my parents.
Okay. And to you, do you think there's a shared understanding of what an NGO is among your peers, among your friends, family? Do you think there is a shared understanding?
Well, I have been creating the awareness of an NGO and its purpose to as many people as possible.
What is an NGO? If you were asked.
Okay, so an NGO is a non-governmental organization, operates independently, typically one whose purpose is to address social and political issues.
Okay, what is the difference, if any, between an NPO and a non-governmental organization?
Well, tricky one. It's a question that I'm always asked. I don't see much of a difference. Me personally, I don't see much of a difference between the both. It seems as if the both have the same objective, and that is having the best interest of the community and the lives of the people around us at interest.
So if someone were to ask you to define who you are, what would you say to them?
That's a good one. Well, I'm passionate, I'm driven, self-driven, and obviously it all comes from the experiences that I've had growing up. And just to introduce myself formally to everybody, my name is Natasha Pillay. I am born and raised in Pietermaritzburg, a province in KwaZulu-Natal. I have 3 siblings, Deborah, Titus, and Crystal. I would like to think or believe that I'm the most favorite child. My journey from school to now is as follows. I started my primary education in Northlands Primary School. I furthered my into my secondary education at Esther Payne Smith Secondary, one of the very impoverished schools in Pietermaritzburg, where we had the lack of facilities, where it meant going to school with windows and doors that were broken, and where young people were forced to be educated in a place where it was very difficult. So basically, in a nutshell, a very impoverished community. After Esther Payne Smith, I matriculated in the year of 2008, and thereafter I started my first job in 2009. Obviously, not in a very good setting or environment. And as time went on, I became a breadwinner at home. just to summarize everything about me, so it hasn't been an easy road. I've been faced, like many South Africans, with many trials and difficulties. And growing up, I still remember there were days that I literally would walk to work and back, and then, but from all of those experiences, it started to drive me and motivate me and make me hungry to become successful, and also so that I could impact the lives of other young people so that they wouldn't have to experience what I've experienced. Where I am at the moment, I am currently the owner and president of Amanzi Apilayo Trading in Pietermaritzburg, as well as Shifa Business Enterprise. And I'm currently one that's leading and assisting many NGOs in South Africa, obviously educating them and trying to bring them to work together so that we can now impact the community and accomplish that purpose.
Okay, so what inspired you to consider serving NGOs or use NGOs as vehicles to bring social change?
Well, you see, with NGOs, they have the NGO and myself, we have one thing in common, and that is the people. And obviously impacting the lives of people around us. Now, in the community that I've grown up in, which is in Pietermaritzburg, and obviously now that I'm well-traveled, so I've got to experience a little bit of South Africa and the impoverished areas. I've come across people that are literally making it by the skin of their teeth day by day, where they do not even have proper facilities like using the toilet or even access to clean water. Therefore, NGO and I have that in common, where I would like to assist the community with that there. And I've currently been involved in those projects in assisting people around South Africa. So that's what inspires me and links me up to the NGOs.
If in terms of problem statement definition, what are the typical problems that are faced by NGOs in South Africa?
Currently, currently there's a lack of funds in, with regard to the NGOs, right? An NGO's goal doesn't really lie in accomplishing one project. After success of a certain project, NGOs would like to maintain with their beneficiaries and make sure that there's continuous progress happening. Apart from that, NGOs would like to be able to help more individuals and communities depending on their needs. But in order for that to happen, there has to be a proper source of funds coming in. So that's one of the problems. The second one is strategic planning. At times, there may be many bright ideas that come to place, but it can also cause confusion and cause a person to stray away from the initial goal. Although many ideas are good and come to pass, sometimes they don't always remain, and it doesn't remain in line with the goals that were set initially. So that's the second thing I've noticed, the strategic planning. And then the third one is absence of networking. NGOs supposed to be working together, obviously more efficiently with one perspective. However, I've noticed that some NGOs see each other as competition, which is unhealthy, obviously. An NGO shouldn't be looking at another NGO as a competition. So, and the next one is the lack of maintenance as well.
Okay. When and how did your attention to the problems that you have defined arise? When did you know that you could be an active agent of change using NGOs?
Well, it all started over a year and a half ago, where as I became more successful, I decided to start to fund certain projects and assist the community and people around. And then I started to come into contact with the different NGOs that were contacting me. However, the person that I am, I pay attention to detail and I'm all about the nitty-gritty. So things that usually get ignored, I pay close attention to it. And what I've noticed is that there is a lack of planning, and obviously the problems that I've just mentioned to you, the four main problems. And as time went on, as much as I was dealing with it, I've realized that something has to be done with regard to that, because there are funds that are coming in and grants that have been approved. But if you do not know how to utilize those funds, then it profits anybody. Nobody profits from that there, not the community or anybody around us. So something in that aspect has to be done to fix that. And so I started to work around with the different NGOs in the country, trying to bring some order and structure to it.
Okay, if you look at the NGO sector and look at the individuals who use NGOs, who do you look up to or you think are shining stars or outstanding individuals who are playing their part in changing the way things are done and delivering solutions?
At this point, I would say it would be unfair for me to actually mention a few names. There are a lot of people with the NGOs that are efficient, that do deliver, and do obviously pay attention to the staff around them. I haven't found anyone that I so-called, like I could say that I really follow at the moment, at this point, as I am still at the stage where I'm fixing and coming up with solutions to assist the NGOs in the country.
And do you think, from your experience, many of the NGOs that you know of actually live up to the objectives they are established or the promise that they want to deliver?
From what I've experienced, okay, where I have come on board, obviously, I've seen the projects to its completion, and because that's important, is that once you've taken up a task, you see it to its full completion, with all integrity included. I've noticed there is some sort of lack of communication, and there's a lot of confusion that takes place, and that needs to be eliminated. So there are many NGOs that haven't been able to live up to their promises, while there are still many NGOs that do live up to their promises, provided that they are guided through. So guidance is one of the key aspects, yeah.
And in terms of guidance, where do we go from for guidance and wisdom about this?
Well, we have now come up with an amazing project which benefits the NGOs in South Africa. Remember, when the NGO benefits, the community benefits. And so at no cost, we are now offering NGOs and the directors of the NGOs training with certification at the end of the training. Obviously, the aim is to coach, to educate, because education is very important. So to educate the directors of those NGOs and come alongside them, and let's work together to build a better South Africa.
Okay, and how many NGOs are you aware of or know of your services?
Okay, currently there are 29 NGOs that have been assisting, that I've been assisting in the country. There are more coming in every day. Obviously, people are recommending, or other directors from different NGOs are recommending the service to the people that they know that own the NGOs. And so it's growing every day. It's growing. It's getting better. And I just encourage all the directors from the NGOs, come alongside, let's work together, and let's do this the right way, and let's not delay. in assisting the people in South Africa. There are young children and adults out there that are struggling. And especially right now during COVID-19, it's this type of pandemic that has taken South Africa, not just South Africa, but the world by storm. And there's a lack of income. People have lost their jobs. Children are now at home and they are missing out on their school year. And we need to come up with a solution that is going to happen quick and fast, and yet with diligence to benefit those children that are now at home. How are we going to help them? And so I would encourage all of the NGOs, get a hold of my details, come alongside me and us, our team. We are here, we are ready to help you guys. At the end of the training, we will provide you with a certificate and we'll guide you all the way through.
And when you look at the corona or COVID-19, what do you think have been the major impacts on the business of NGOs?
It's been tough. We've experienced lots of difficulties. We've had a lot of people coming alongside us privately and funding projects because we haven't been receiving obviously proper funding, or we've had lots of promises of funding and nobody's really delivered. But we've obviously, with the private funders that we've had, people coming alongside us, we were able to deliver, but unfortunately not as much as we'd like. And we need more people to come alongside us, and we need to get these NGOs funded, first of all, trained, funded, and we need our projects to start to materialize with immediate effect. This pandemic has really taken us off track. And the main concern is that it's now growing, it's increasing every single day, and lives are being impacted negatively. And we want to cause a positive change.
Okay, that's interesting. When we look at the NGO governance, the directors of NGOs, do you think there is need to improve capacity for them to know what their obligations are to NGOs, or is generally understood what needs to be done by directors?
You know, at this point, it's amazing. I would think that directors of NGOs would know their responsibility. And there's one thing that I believe is that you are never too old or too successful to be educated or to educate yourself further. So by a director of an NGO getting involved in the training that we have in store for them, it doesn't belittle them in any way. There is room to grow. There's always room to learn, and that will never change. And definitely they need to be, they need to go through this training so that they can learn all over again. And let's create the urgency. They know their role, and then they carry out their role efficiently. So yes, there is capacity, and yes, they do need to be more educated on their role, because it is a big one to play.
And is there order and structure in the NGO ecosystem?
Unfortunately, not at all. I see it when I first got into it. I've noticed the chaos around it. In fact, it was lying dead as far as I'm concerned. So there is no proper structure in place. We need to come to terms with what happens when the funding comes. Okay, you apply for a grant for the NGO, and then the funding comes through, which the directors have access to. And what happens next? Is there order in the way you are carrying out your projects? And how does it benefit the community? So we need these NGOs to come together, everybody working hand in hand for this to be successful. There has to be a proper structure in place. Without order, you are unable to carry out certain projects. Without structure, how then can we stand strong?
Is there any association of these NGOs that you know of that is functioning and where members can go to for support?
Well, at this point, the members of the NGOs have been coming to me where I've been providing them with some sort of training and education, and obviously guidance throughout from the beginning. I've been offering them this education on the NGO. I've been reiterating their purpose as directors. And then when the funding does come through, step by step, I guide them, ensuring that each project is carried out with diligence and effectively. So
But
that
I thought you are a Mother Teresa and you don't get paid for the service. How do you sustain this charity?
Well, it's amazing that you said that. I hear that quite often, but I guess sometimes you don't need to profit from everything. If you've started from the bottom and you know what the struggle is, then you'd understand that not everything is about making profits, and it's important to impact the lives. People's lives depend on us, and it's important that we deliver on it. In terms of me sustaining myself, like I said, I am now a successful businesswoman, and there's more room for me to grow in terms of my business. Hence, my business has also been supporting the different NGOs and NPOs in the country. So it's from a month-to-month basis. I've done my charity run for Christmas. Then in January, it was a stationary run where I've provided various schools and hundreds of children around KwaZulu-Natal with stationery. So in terms of getting paid by the NGO, no, not really. But you know what? The point is we need a proper system in place so that we can carry this out more efficiently.
Finally, we met last week, and when you left, were you a changed person? If so, what are the key things that you learned?
Okay, so obviously speaking to you, and it was so amazing after our meeting. I was really happy to see that there's a whole lot of people that share the same interest as me. You being one of them, who has the NGO at heart, so that it really spoke volumes, and it made me look at this in a very critical light, and it recreated the urgency in me. Not that I didn't have the urgency, but it reignited the flame and this urgency that something has to be done quick and fast, and the time is now.
So are you fired up to do something collectively and collaboratively?
Definitely. I'm definitely on fire. And as you can see, I'm excited and I'm at my best right now. I'm ready to take this on. I'm ready to accommodate and cover all of the NGOs and give them structure throughout South Africa. So even traveling is not the problem, accommodation is not the problem. I'm ready to go on this.
Okay, thank you very much for your time. This is part one of a continuing conversation with Ms. Natasha Pillay. A problem does exist. Many of the NGOs that are established have members. Some of them, they don't even know what they are expected to do, where the funding will come from, how to work together, how to build something out of nothing, out of ideas, how to impact on the broader public. And when they look at the world, sometimes they look at income and expenses, but most of the NGOs don't have income. They are not there to sell a product or a service, but just to serve the public. So what is required to be done? People like Natasha have stepped forward to say, I must be the face of change, that tomorrow begins today and I have to do my bit. If all of us play our parts, individual by individual, then the sum of the total of us will be bigger than the individual contributions we make. So on our side, it's 1873 network. We said, let's partner. An individual is indivisible. You can't have one individual divided into two. You are one. You can't have a black human being or white human being because you're all human beings. Even when we say Black Lives Matter, we are also saying lives matter, which is all lives matter because we don't have a mechanism to create it. But some can't make ends meet. They need support. Even under the lockdown positions, there are many people who cannot get service because they're individuals. So organize yourself something bigger than the individuals in it. You are not a government. You are just a juristic person comprised of individuals who share a common interest. You set up an institution. That institution acquires a life of its own. It has rights, it has obligations, but without the individuals, there is no organization. So when we call an NGO, we are saying order and structure delivers a better promise. It means the aspirations of so many people can collapse into one organization. You become the bridge into communities who are voiceless, who can't even write a business proposal, who can't even monitor or plan projects. So those who can become their eyes and ears. All they need is a break. They need funding, they need resources. If it's masks, they need masks. If it's testing kits, they need testing kits. If whatever they need, they can't retail it and get people on the other side, supply side, listening to them. So when we come back again, we'll then talk to these 29 organizations as the nucleus of setting up an association or federation of NGOs so that a secretariat can be created. The money they mobilize will be used to support the supporting services required to make these organizations effective and efficient. So though Natasha may not need money, the organization itself, it only becomes real and living with resources. And when people use their resources, channel them into one common bridge, then the transition to the outcome desired becomes possible. So thank you very much for giving up your time. And maybe you can close by giving your final words.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure meeting you and also with this broadcast. It spoke volumes today, and just advice to all of the directors of the NGOs, please stay tuned for our next broadcast, and let's make use of the assistance that we have provided for you guys. And to all of the South Africans and people throughout the world that are going through this pandemic, I pray that you guys will be safe, and I hope that this pandemic will soon come to an end and we can all move forward. Thank you so much.
No, thank you very much, and goodbye.